Hello everyone, I am Dr. Mahesh Sudakshane, Secretary Pune IIP. Today we have gathered here to understand more about the obesity. We have renowned faculties here, Dr. Vaman Khadilkar, Dr. Rahul Jahagirdar and Dr. Madhura Kargupikar. We will be discussing about what is obesity and will try to deep dive into the importance of obesity and its management. I hand over to Dr. Rajesh Kulkarni and Dr. Manoj Zhalte for the further proceedings.
Thank you, Mahesh. So we'll start. Dr. Rahul Jagidar sir, what is obesity?
Obesity in simple terms could be defined as a chronic illness where we have excess adipose tissue which is non-functional. It can affect the person's health, can lead to increased morbidity and in some cases increased mortality as well.
Okay, now how significant is the obesity is now and how is the changing over the period of time?
Actually, the trend is very worrying, and we have seen an increase of about 24 times increase in the last 2 to 3 decades. In urban areas, in developing countries, it's higher, and in the developed countries, in the rural areas, the trend is seen higher. And we see in studies, reported obesity rates are up to 18%. Some studies even say up to 40%. Obesity is seen in children, and now infant obesity is also going up. 3 to 4% of infants also seem to have obesity. So it's a very worrying trend.
I would like to ask Dr. Vaman sir, what is the difference between an obese child, an overweight child, somebody who is heftily built? How do we identify that this child is obese?
Okay, thank you. First of all, thanks for taking this on. Pediatric obesity is something that we all ignore at all levels. I think I would first like to give one important message to all pediatricians and parents that obesity is an illness and we must all learn to look at it as an illness, not as just the quote unquote healthy child. So coming back to your question, if you could please repeat for me.
Yeah, so difference between obesity, overweight and heftily built child.
Okay, now see, this is tricky because if I have to give you an example of say some athlete, a muscularly built 15-year-old wrestler, his body mass index may be higher than that of an obese child. So the difference between an obese child and somebody who is a muscular athlete defines to a point the question that you said, that what is the difference between obesity, adiposity, healthy weight and hefty or medium build. So while body mass index is a very useful tool, it does have some fallacies. So we have to, as a clinician, look at the child and there itself you understand whether this is a muscular child or this is a roly-poly, obese child.
Absolutely. So many a times the parents have a concern that that my child is thin built, and then there is every effort made to feed the child. So is there a possibility that these efforts can translate into obesity sometimes?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. Most of these efforts are very counterproductive, and it's an effort to match the very healthy child, which is actually an unhealthy child. So most of the times the obesity, now it's a pandemic which is so rampant that children are obese, and just to match those obese children, these thinly built children get so much packaged food that they end up with obesity like the rest of them. So it's a worrying trend.
So that means even if child is thinly built, but he's playing well, he's active well, he's enjoying his life, we should let it be like
Exactly.
that. We should
Yes.
not make him more healthy. He's
Yeah.
already very healthy.
So it's our job as pediatricians to actually show them on the growth chart that look, your child is in the normal spectrum for height, weight. So don't get worried, and this is good. Thin is healthy. Don't be worried.
I just want to add one thing to what you already said and what Dr. Manoj said, is that see, somehow there is this thing in our society that obese is considered as healthy,
Yes.
whereas obese is actually very unhealthy. Those children that you said who look thin, who are active, who are playful, they are healthy. Obese are actually unhealthy.
Right. I think that distinction we should make it very clear that obesity
Is
or
not healthy.
overweight child is not a healthy child,
Right.
and it's actually a disease.
And many times parents come and ask like that. I said, you are healthy, like thin and very healthy active child, or hefty and very lazy child.
Exactly.
Then they are ready for it.
So the next question goes to again Kharlekar sir. So what are the factors that affect obesity, and how does genetics play a role? And do small babies become obese later in life? SGA babies, for example,
Yes.
or babies who have cerebral palsy or some disability who are not able to go out and exercise, do they become obese?
Yes, I think, see, the world has seen a tremendous increase in obesity, adults as well as children. So the chance that there is a sudden genetic drift in human beings is extremely unlikely. So the garden variety of obesity that you and I see is typically lack of exercise, lack of activity, lack of insight, and excessive calories. So 95 to 98% of children who are obese have a lifestyle disorder, whereas the remaining small portion have various causes, which may include hormonal disorders, genetics. Those with genetic obesity present very early on. They have infantile obesity. They also have some other features such as, deafness, hearing deficit, syndromic features. They are typical. You can recognize them very earlier on. And SGA, now that special group of children I would like to spend a minute on, is if you're born small, then you are likely to have three major killers in life. They include cardiovascular morbidity, type 2 diabetes, and cerebral disease. Now that was Barker's hypothesis. Now in India we have 30% children born as SGAs, of which nearly 40% remain small. And their parents are very keen on feeding them, overfeeding them. Eventually they become obese. So that special group, as pediatrician I would say, don't overfeed. Let the child grow according to their percentile and their appetite. If we destroy their natural clues of when to stop by overfeeding, we will make them obese.
Very clear message.
Yes, I have this experience of that. I got child who was on below third percentile, like you said. I was also worried as a pediatrician because I didn't know all this thing that time. And I said they started feeding, which started to make him healthy. It has become too healthy, it has become too obese.
Ultimately happens.
So
The end
that
of
we
the
should take
obesity.
across.
Yes.
Yeah.
So among diet and exercise, Dr. Rahul, which one is more important, or both are important, or how do we give importance to diet and exercise? Which one is more important?
So, very good question. Actually, mostly we consider that exercise is what makes you healthy, but the problem is the diet is never addressed, and you end up in consuming the food fact which are very high in calories, which Madhura was saying some time back, and ultimately leads to obesity. So you never get the effect by only exercise or only diet. It should be a combination of both, but diet does play a significant role, and you should watch what you're eating. So mindful eating, which I would say, would go a long way to modify the outcome of your child's health.
So like our old age is like 32 वेळा दात that makes difference.
Yes.
And it not only health, mental health also, stress also is reduced. Okay. So what are the consequences of obesity? Sir Vaman Khadikar sir.
Obesity is a chronic, relentless, devastating illness. So in the initial period of life, there may not be complications that surface, but they are growing, they're developing over a period of time. So I would like to divide those complications as those which are psychological and physical. Amongst the physical complications, right from the top, you have complications like raised intracranial pressure, you have complications which are orthopedic because they're just so heavy, they get orthopedic complications. Sleep apneas, breathing disorders, asthma, so much more common in obese children. So it's a multi-systemic disorder that eventually develops, and screening for comorbidity is pediatrician's job.
Right.
So they must screen for comorbidity right from the age of, I would now say, 6 or 7. In the past, our guidelines said 10 years onwards, but it's coming earlier and earlier. So from 6 years onwards, we should start screening for comorbidity by simple questioning. And then whenever you find a problem, investigate.
I think that is an important statement, that looking for comorbidities, not only just diagnosing overweight or obesity, but as a pediatrician we should know what to look for
And screen.
We should screen it. It is very important. Again, we have talked about the consequences of obesity. Dr. Madhura, what is the role of technology? How can we harness technology to address this problem? Because we know technology is causing obesity, overuse of technology. But on the other hand, can we harness technology to address this obesity?
It's a double-edged sword, really, technology. But yes, I think we can use it. We can optimize the use of technology to make it useful to us. Now there are many smart gadgets. There are smart watches. There are smart rings which can be used to understand the daily trends of how much sedentary time that child is getting or how much active time that child is getting, and then try to work on that. Also, we have better devices, like we have the DEXA, we have the bioimpedance, which can tell you exactly how much fat and how much muscle is there in the child. Because BMI that way is a crude tool. I mean, it can tell you, if you're overweight or obese, but it does not differentiate fat from muscle. So this, we can go one step ahead and try to factor this in, so we can help the child better.
Dr. Rahul, now as a
So you want to
general
add something to the
pediatrician,
question?
yes. Yeah.
Yes, I think while technology and newer applications which are designed to monitor the progress are good, but we shouldn't use them as therapeutic avenues.
Right.
I think the therapeutics has to come back to the pediatrician.
Right.
It is a skill how to use the technology.
Right.
Another thing that technology sometimes you go that psychological, like children get the stars.
Yes.
So while doing some quick run for 4 kilometers, you get the stars in this. These are also some inspiration.
Yes.
Plus they can make the group, they can share the things.
And only technology cannot be relied on, because
Yes.
children learn to manipulate that as well.
Right.
So if you just get with that, you are never well.
No, that is for self-assessment,
Yes.
not only for our pediatricians also.
Children
Yes.
are smarter than pediatricians.
Absolutely,
And,
they are smarter than the gadgets. Yes.
One point that how are the reliable all these weighing machines and body fat analyzers?
Right. Now, I think every machine has to be calibrated over a period of time. So I would say even your weighing scale in your clinic, you need to calibrate once in 6 months. Your stereometer, once in 6 months, you must calibrate. So any machine that you calibrate is like your car. So if you keep it well tuned, it will be fine. Now, when it comes to which are bioelectric impedance gadgets which can be relied upon, see, the simple ones that you would see in gyms or at some nutritionist places are not really the clinical grade machines.
Right.
In fact, Tanita, a company that produces it, has 6 grades
Right.
of machines. Grade 5, grade 6 are actually useful
Right.
and reliable. But many a times, what you find in gyms, etc., are grade 1, grade 2, which are
Not
on the
reliable.
same individual, they may give a very different
Different
reading at
readings.
different times.
So again, Dr. Rahul, this is for you. As a pediatrician, a child comes to me. I diagnose obesity. I even do a BMI,
Right.
and then the only test probably I would do is a thyroid, because
Right.
that is what we are taught.
Yes.
That thyroid is an important cause of obesity. So apart from thyroid, which is an important test,
Correct.
but what other investigations should a pediatrician do before a referral is made, or before a specialist opinion is sought?
Correct. So basically, like sir was saying, it's a condition which has a lot of comorbidities. If you have a child who is obese, it's likely that he would have developed some form of comorbidities or likely to go into that phase. So it would be ideal for a lipid profile, a blood glucose level, and maybe a liver function test to be done fasting, so as to know how much involvement of other organs have already occurred or likely to occur, and then refer to endocrinologist where he or she could intervene with high frequency tests which are required. Anything you want to add?
Okay. Then how to do this? This is a very sensitive issue for obesity, for children also and for parents also. How to do effective conversation on counseling?
Yes. I think most obese children are actually bullied so much or are already stigmatized by the time they see a pediatrician or a specialist. So, as healthcare providers, we have to be so careful, so sensitive, never to use any terminology or even gestures that would stigmatize and would psychologically affect the child. So, rather than focusing the discussion on the child's obesity, we focus the discussion on how lifestyle should be changed,
Right.
and explain to parents why we want the child to get back to normal BMI percentiles. But this is a very sensitive issue. In fact, it's not uncommon for obese children to start crying even before you open the topic, and the parents comes and says this is what is happening, and the child starts crying, and it's very traumatic. So we have to handle it carefully. Sometimes a psychologist help is required. That's again a cause and effect. Many psychologically affected children become obese because food becomes a solace.
Correct.
So which one comes first sometimes requires careful attention.
In fact, when these children come, constantly I discuss about lifestyle, their parents' lifestyle. Then I advise, I may be wrong, but for meditation, like audible and so many things are there. So read and keep on going this positive thinking people.
Yes.
Like that you have to conscious lifestyle also. And usually I seen during childhood the whatever children usually they eat only 2 or 3 times in a week, and 3 to 2 times they don't eat. So I tell parents actually we should follow the children.
Yes.
Even I
Very true.
yeah.
Very true.
When you are only required, then only eat. Like not like autopilot mode. Day and night we keep on eating.
Yeah.
So you have to keep that lifestyle also.
Correct.
Yes.
Very true. And also on that regard, we focus on health of children rather than on the appearance.
Right.
Whereas everybody is taunting them for the appearance.
Yeah.
We say that's not we are here for. We are here for the internal health.
Right.
And that's what we need to focus.
Yeah, the consequences of obesity should be the primary
Explained and-
explanation and how it is harming you
In the long
That-
run.
Yeah, in the long run. I think children should be made aware of it,
And they do
especially
respond,
adolescents.
yes.
And sometimes one question, there are many familial things like mother, father, most of them are obese. So how to tackle with this issue?
I mean, you all know it's a very popular saying that obesity doesn't run in families.
Okay.
Nobody in the family runs.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. So if nobody runs in the families, obesity will run in that family. In fact, we had an interesting study done in the United Kingdom where the dogs were swapped from thin families to obese,
Oh.
and actually the dog becomes obese and thin. So it is largely a lifestyle disorder. So coming back to the question as to how do we focus on educating people for prevention of obesity. In fact, see, it's quite amazing if you think about it. If you have to adopt a child, then the criteria required are so strict.
Right.
But if you have to have a natural
Raise a
child,
child, yeah.
it is nothing.
Right.
So nobody is prepared for parenting,
Right.
and nobody is prepared especially for how to manage nutrition and exercise and lifestyle of a child. So I think as a pediatrician, the minute you see a newborn, that may be a time actually you start talking to them about lifestyle,
Yeah.
healthy lifestyle, that you should have, this much of this is healthy food. And I often ask this question to parent: what was your weight when you got married? When they bring an obese child, I make them stand on the weight, and most parents are 20 to 40 kilos more than when they got married.
Yes, yes.
And who are they trying to treat? Their child, who is a mirror of their lifestyle.
Correct.
So I think that is the important thing.
Children just follow the footsteps. They just do what
I
the
think
parents
that
are doing.
We should target at telling the family that the changes need to be as a family together.
Across
You
the
can't
family.
target only the child.
Absolutely.
Going through it, actually, I personally want to your opinions. When you are dealing with the obesity children, how your experiences about your practice?
Right. Okay. Now, first of all, experience number one: how many children that I have counseled for obesity actually stick on to seeing me? How long do they actually come back and see me? That is variable between 6 months to 10 years.
Oh.
So, who are the people who keep coming back to you, who actually have had enough time talking to you, who have understood the problem, and who see the results?
Okay.
And then they want to maintain that. But if you ask me what is the average time period that an obese child is likely to follow a pediatrician, I would say not more than 6 months, because it's frustrating. That is one experience. Second experience is how many people actually agree with me that you are on a path of a relentlessly progressive chronic disorder. Not even half. They are not convinced at the end of consultation that this is going to be a lifetime lifestyle disorder.
Right.
That is the second experience. The reason is they have never grown with this concept that my so-called healthy looking child actually has a chronic disease. So that is where I think we all need to get together and start educating the parents right from the beginning.
Your experience?
They generally do agree with a lot of counseling. We do spend a lot of time with them. They do follow it. But what happens is they eventually they get some weight loss and lose interest in whatever they're doing.
Right.
When they come back, they're back to where they were, probably more than what they were. The classical yo-yo effect is
common.
what we commonly see in our practice. So again, like sir was saying, we have to be persistent and tell them that it's a chronic lifestyle modification which is required to give you benefits. Otherwise, we are going to come back in the same zone which we started with.
I agree, and this is very common that unless the change is sustainable, the effect doesn't last. Initially, the parents go in an overdrive, get the nutritionist on board, enroll the child in a gym or some fitness activity. The child loses some weight, but it's not sustainable. Finally, the child also gives up, and the parents give up, and the follow-up never remains. So it's not easy to keep going at it.
We really have to change the parents' mindset. I mean, I really tell you, nearly 90% of those that I counsel, even before my consultation is over, the parent is trying to tell the child, this is only for 6 months, huh, beta? This is only for 6 months, huh, beta? Then you can get back to your lifestyle. So that is something
That is the
that we must keep educating parents.
Yeah, and second thing is lifestyle is for the family, not the for child.
Exactly.
If parents don't follow, is cannot expect the child to.
In fact, if the parents follow the instructions given to the child, they will live much longer.
Yeah.
So it is treating the parents and the child
And the
together,
child together.
not the child.
It's a family thing.
And as a pediatrician, even if out of 100, only 1%, 2% success rate, that is very tremendous. Because because I have experienced that is tremendous reward. One child out of 100 is also not a small thing. Okay.
What are the classical indications? When should I refer to a child to an endocrinologist? Because we see a lot of children who are overweight. Some of them are obese, and pediatricians try and counsel, try and educate the parents. But what are the indications where what are the absolute indications, and what would be the relative indications where we must make a referral to an endocrinologist?
Right. So, though the most common cause of obesity is exogenous obesity, nutritional obesity, there are certain red flags that we should keep an eye out for. So, those could be very early onset obesity. In infancy, if the child starts aggressively gaining weight, that is a red flag.
Right.
If there are any behavioral issues, any developmental delays, hearing is impaired, vision is impaired, dysmorphism is seen, hypogonadism, then these are red flags. Definitely needs an early referral. Also going ahead, as the child starts growing older, if you see girls who have menstrual irregularities, hirsutism, so anything which is also present other than the obesity primarily, this needs referral. And special mention for when you plot the child on the chart, if the child is short and obese, definitely we are looking at
Very likely
something
endocrinologist.
pathological. This is not nutritional obesity.
Right.
So now, at the end, what are the future trends or new therapies or any management protocols?
Yes. I think the world has struggled with treating children and adults with obesity. So there is always this attraction of a pharmacotherapeutic agent.
Yes.
Some pharmacotherapeutic agents, especially in children older than 12 years, have shown promise. And the fancy thing today is the liraglutide and semaglutide, which is selling like hotcake to a point that many companies have stopped producing their main product and are producing only this. But these are only rescue therapies to be used only when there is complete failure of medical therapy. There are more than 2 comorbidities which are life-threatening to the child, and certainly not a first-line management at all. But yes, there is a ray of hope for those who have failed medical therapy, who have complications, and nothing else is working.
Right.
So there is definite improvement in pharmacotherapy area, but for pediatric practice, only adolescents, I would say beyond 12 years of age, with these strict criteria followed. Other than that, it's all about lifestyle.
Yes.
Thank you.
On behalf of Indian Academy of Pediatrics Pune, I thank you for an excellent session. Dr. Manoj Zalte, Dr. Rajesh Kulnani, and our eminent panelists, Dr. Vaman Khadilkar, Dr. Rahul Jahagirdar, and Dr. Madhura Kargupikar for an informative session. At the end, I would like to ask all the panelists about one single take-home message for the pediatrician on a childhood obesity.
Should I start? Yeah. So the take-home message should be that obesity is not the child's problem alone. It is also the parent's problem. It is also the pediatrician's problem. Everybody is involved. And unless we all are together in it on the same page about what needs to be done, it can't be tackled.
Obesity is not healthy, we know that. So we have to have counseling of everybody right from beginning. It's a long-term process, needs to be done by everybody over a period of time. Ultimately, it would help the child as well as the community.
First, I request pediatricians to take height and weight, calculate BMI, and use IAP growth charts to detect obesity. Second is it's a lifestyle, lifetime disorder. And I would like IAP to make an effort to tell the schools to reduce screen time in children and hopefully not send all the curriculum and homework on their mobile devices, but let them write it down. Thank you.
करणार आहे.
one line take home message for the
नाही जस्ट 1 minute यू टेक दिस वन तू रेकॉर्ड कर जस्ट कम हिअर थँक्यू
oh सांगतो रेजिमेंट
यू वॉन्ट टू स्मार्ट मॅन फर्स्ट यू से थँक्यू सगळ्यांना नंतर टेक केम देन तो हे करेल